Then some people began to make the journey. Verse 31, a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. Then look at the next verse. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Now let me just stop you right there. The priest in those days would have been considered kind of the upper class. They would have been the first class people. They would have been the nobility of the day. All right? Let me tell you what this priest was probably doing. If he was traveling from Jerusalem, where the sanctuary was, where the temple was, down to Jericho, that same path, that probably means the priest had just been serving his 2-week term of working there in the temple. He would have been performing sacrifices, overseeing all that was taking place there in the temple. So he had been away from his family for 2 weeks. And that's the way the priests in those days did. They were in a rotation. They were on an on-call system. And when it was your turn to go up to Jerusalem to work, you would stay there for 2 weeks. And so probably he's been there for 2 weeks. He's making the journey down. And on his way, he sees this guy. He sees this guy laying down. Now, let me tell you what. He doesn't know this guy. He doesn't know who he is. But here's what he also knows. The guy's clearly been beat up. He seems to be unconscious. He's unresponsive. He's bloodied. And he's got a choice to make. If I go over there and render aid, and it turns out this guy is dead, I am immediately unclean. And what he would have to do is he'd have to turn around and he'd have to go back to Jerusalem for a ceremonial cleansing and probably spend another 7 to 10 days there. And he might have been on his way home to have dinner with his wife. In those days, he didn't have a cell phone to call and say, honey, I'm going to be late for dinner. It's just another 7 days, 10 days, he's out. So he had good reason. But it says he passed by on the other side of the road. He looked at the individual. That word in the Greek means pass by. That means it's the Greek word anti. In other words, he resisted even being close to the guy. A lot of us do the same thing. When we encounter someone, sometimes we encounter these people in church. They've got some sin in their life, or gone some difficulty in their life, or they're struggling with this, or they've been divorced, or they have that. Man, we have a tendency to what? Push away, right? Some of the most beautiful ministries we have in our church, I believe, reflect so much the heart of Jesus. Ministries like Divorce Care and Grief Share, Celebrate Recovery, helping people get over their hurts and their habits and their hang-ups and their addictions. Broken people. And if in your heart, when you walk by one of those classes, if you just kind of want to distance yourself, or someone is broken and bad, even if it's their own fault, if your heartbeat is that of the priest because you don't want to be unclean, I will tell you, you don't have the heart of Jesus. If that's the way I sense as a pastor, I don't have the heart of Jesus. Because it's real clear that Jesus said it doesn't matter that he's been up there serving in the temple for 2 weeks. Jesus said, that's not my heart. And he could have gone on down. And then the Levite does the same thing. If you want to know the best analogy I can give you for the difference between a priest and a Levite was part of the tribe of Levi. The priest, they would have been like the pastor, the senior pastor in a church, put it this way. A Levite would be like the associate pastors, the other ministers. They do all the work. They do all the hard. You know, the priest was the top dog in the church, if you want to put it that day. The Levite was the worker bee. All right? They could both be unclean. They both couldn't touch a dead body. They couldn't separate it. There were some differences, like a priest. If he ever had a sore on his body, or an open sore, some sort of blemish, or he'd gotten hurt by the horse, if he wasn't just perfect, he wouldn't get the opportunity to serve his 2 weeks in the sanctuary. The priest had to stay so pure and so clean that he couldn't marry a widowed lady, a lady whose husband had died, nor could he marry a divorced lady. A Levite, of the tribe of Levi, he could. He could marry a divorced lady. He could marry a widowed lady. He could do those things because the standard wasn't quite as high for the Levite. But both of them, if they touched the body, they were rendered useless for a season of uncleanness. They're in service to the community in the sanctuary. And so he journeys to the other side.